So we're continuing our series on love is. What does it mean to love? So as I always do, before I have my sermon, I prepare during the week and I consult a number of resources, including some of the best theological tomes that there are, usually pretty dry stuff, lots of deep language in the Hebrew and the Greek. So this week I consulted my go-to once again, and that was the Peanuts comic strip. You can find a lot of great theology there, lots of words of wisdom. So we've got Lucy and Charlie Brown in the frame, and Lucy says, "You know what I don't understand, Charlie Brown? I don't understand love." Charlie Brown says, "Well, who does, right?" And she says, "Well, explain it to me, Charlie Brown." And he says, "You can't explain love. I mean, I can show you a poem or a painting, but I can't explain love." But she presses like Lucy does, and he says, "Well, try, Charlie Brown. Try." He says, "All right," because Charlie can't ever say no to Lucy. Remember the whole football thing, right? So he says, "All right, let's say that I'm walking along and I see this little cute, beautiful girl." And of course, Lucy interrupts and she says, "Why does it have to be a cute little girl? Why can't it be someone with freckles and a big nose that you fall in love with?" Charlie says, "All right, okay, try again." So I'm walking along and I see this girl with a great big nose. And again, she interrupts. "I didn't say great big nose." So then Charlie, he sighs like he does. He's exasperated and he says, "Not only can't you explain love, you can't even talk about it, right? You can't even talk about it." Well, we're going to talk about it. So last week we began with love is patient. We have this whole litany from St. Paul. Love is kind. It doesn't envy. It doesn't boast. It doesn't keep a record of wrongs. Words, though, are never quite enough to explain love. Oh, we can begin there, and St. Paul does a great job there in 1 Corinthians 13. But unless you actually look at the lives of those who love, the actions of those who love, you really will never quite understand it. So we have the words from Paul to get us started. The things that we love. Last week, love is patient. I don't know how many of you had difficulty with the patience part. I know I do. It's hard to be patient oftentimes with people. So I thought this week love is kind's a little easier. We do things, kind things for people. I thought maybe we could do this. How many of you still hold the door open for someone, say at the grocery store or the mall or the shop? Do you do that? A lot of you do. So chivalry is not completely dead. We'll do that. How many of you maybe shoveled snow for a neighbor this past winter? Some of you did that. You can come over and do mine. That's okay too. If you want to do something kind. How many of you, like when you get home a little earlier on trash pickup day, you bring your neighbors back up to the garage? Yeah, you do that. It's a kind thing. Maybe you'll carry some groceries for someone at the grocery store. All wonderful things. So we're thinking, all right, we've got this kindness thing down. We know what love is all about. But I would submit to you that we have a tendency to underestimate. We do that with people all the time. We do that with tasks. For example, I had a dishwasher that was broke, and I saw the guy on YouTube. He fixed it in 5 minutes, right? But all right, I can do this, 5 minutes. Well, 5 hours later, and I still hadn't been able to fix it. And I really kind of thought that the dishwasher doesn't need all these parts that are still on my kitchen floor. I mean, what are you going to do with those anyways? And you still then have to hire someone and wait a week or during that window from 8 to 3 on a Friday to actually get it done. So, or pickleball. How many of you play pickleball? Some of you. I thought it wouldn't be that hard, right? I see people in their 80s doing this. I mean, how hard could it be? I mean, it's a tiny court, little wiffle ball. Well, then you get out there and the ball's whizzing past your ear at speeds you didn't think were possible, and you try and bend over to get in position, and well, my knees just don't bend that way anymore. So I don't know, maybe pickleball truly is a real sport. The point is, we tend to underestimate things, including how hard it is to love. We talk about loving things. So, I mean, I love tacos because they really never disappoint. We might love puppies or kittens, but when it comes to people, it's a whole another thing. Because people tend to disappoint us. And it's really hard to love when we're disappointed. And all kinds of people do disappoint us. Our children, have your children, don't raise your hand if your children ever disappointed you. They do, don't they? I mean, the little things, when they don't eat their vegetables, when they talk back to you, when they don't want to go to bed. Just one more story, just one more story. When they get up in the middle of the night and it's a storm and they're afraid. But then they grow up and sometimes we're even more disappointed. They didn't get into the college of our choice, or maybe pick the profession we thought they should, or when they go against the values that we taught them, we're disappointed. But it goes the other way too, doesn't it? Children are sometimes disappointed with their parents. Dad says, yeah, I'll come home tonight a little early from work and we'll play catch in the backyard. And then there's another meeting. And an hour goes by and two. And Dad's too tired to even bother. When we make promises that we can't keep. And then there are our friends. They didn't support us at school. Or they gossip, talk behind our back. Even God disappoints us. You pray and you pray and you pray. And there's no answer, seemingly. Or you have this whole string of disappointments, of failures, painful things. God could have prevented it, but he didn't. So we're disappointed in maybe his power, or his love, or both. But the one truly who should be the most disappointed is God. I mean, really, no one should be more disappointed than God is with us. We have the commandments that we break like they're an eggshell when we're making an omelet in the skillet. We don't observe the Sabbath like we should. Taking a whole day, really, to rest and to focus on God. And he's disappointed. Or worse yet, when we don't stand up for what is good and right in the face of evil, he's disappointed. Or like me with a dishwasher and you use a few words that aren't in the theological vocabulary. It's a little disappointed. Or when our thoughts stray, he's disappointed. And certainly when we don't love others like we should. God is disappointed, and that's what makes his kindness all the more extraordinary. Even when we disappoint him, even when we continue to sin, even when we break those commandments, God still demonstrates his love in this. While we were sinners, while we were disappointing him, while we were breaking those commandments, Christ died for us. He went to the cross to take all of those sins and all of those disappointments, and he put them to death. Now, I began with this: words are never quite enough to explain love. So we look at the lives of others, and particularly we look at the life of Christ, because that's where love is best explained, in the actions, in the deeds, and certainly in what Jesus does. And we have this from our gospel today. Jesus said, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your soul. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light." You know, I used to get really upset about this passage, just really the last line, "For my yoke is easy." And I always thought, well, is this talking about life? Because life isn't easy. I mean, life gets really hard, really challenging, very difficult at times. How can it be easy? Well, when you look at the Greek, as you look at the context, really the word is well fitting. My yoke, Jesus says, for you is well fitting. And what does that mean? Well, in ancient days, when oxen still did the farm work, the master carpenter would come. He would come to the farmer's house and he would measure the oxen, their height and their width. He would measure the distance between the two shoulders, because it took two oxen side by side, linked together, yoked together by that wooden harness. And he would measure them, and then he would go back to his shop and he would fit something that worked exactly for that particular pair. So it wouldn't chafe, so it wouldn't hurt, so they could pull together. And that's what God does for us. That's what Jesus is saying. He's saying the yoke is easy because I am pulling the weight. I have fitted your yoke perfectly so that it won't chafe. It's going to be light. Because you see, the one that we are partnered with is Jesus. And he is the one who takes the burden, first of our sin, but also our shame and guilt for not being the kind people that we should be, for not loving our neighbor or even our family like we should. I want to give you a little illustration. There's a great story about a father and a son. The father wants his son to learn persistence. So there's this boulder outside the backyard, a really, really big rock. And he tells his son, I want you to go out there every day, spend a few minutes, whatever, and just start digging, start pushing, pulling, whatever you want to do, and we'll see if you can move the rock. And the boy is obedient. He's going to do that. So every day he goes out, gets his tools, a shovel, a pick, an axe even, a big sledgehammer, and he tries everything. He tries busting up the rock. It doesn't work. He tries digging underneath it. It doesn't work. He tries using his strength to push it. It doesn't work. A couple of weeks goes by, and it hasn't really budged at all. And so he goes in and he tells his dad, it's impossible. You can't do it. And the father asks, well, did you try everything? Yeah. I tried digging. I tried pushing. I tried using a big sledgehammer. I tried pulling it. Nothing works. And the father said, no, you haven't tried everything. You haven't asked me. So often in this life, we try to remove all of the burdens. We try to carry them. We put them all on our own shoulders. And Jesus says, no. I'll take your burden. Your sin, your shame, your guilt, your disappointments. He even solicits these burdens. He says, bring it on, give it all to me, because I can take it. If your burdens are all taken away by Jesus, no more guilt, no more shame, no more worry, no more sin. You know what that does? It allows you to carry the burdens of others. Sometimes when we do these random acts of kindness, the things we talked about earlier, they may not take a lot of time. We might think, opening the door for someone or shoveling their snow, just the right thing to do. Something I could do, I had the time. But for that person, it could be life-changing. When they see your kindness for them, it can turn their whole life around. Here in your notes, very last line, you see that? This was written in the 2nd century by a man by the name of Tertullian. He was a bishop in the early church, and he wrote, "The loving kindness of God has changed our lives, and that loving kindness has the ability to change the world." The loving kindness of God has changed your life. You have a relationship with the Father because Jesus loved you. And now that we have this kindness, we actually have Jesus living in us, we now can share that with the rest of the world. Now, in Tertullian's day, Christians were known as Christiani. Sounds like Christ, right? Christiani, the people of Christ. But they were also known another way, and they were known as the Crestani. Sounds a lot alike, right? Christiani, Crestani. Christiani is the people of God, but Crestani means the people of kindness. And Tertullian said that even before people knew Christians as the people of Christ, they knew them as the people of kindness. Wouldn't it be great if that were the case today? If before the world knew that you were a Christian, they knew that you were a person of kindness. And then they wondered, where does this kindness come from? Because of the Jesus who lives in you. And then people would begin to associate kindness once again with Christians. Couldn't that change the world? Or at least the community? Or your neighborhood? You want to try? Love is patient, and love is kind. And though people may disappoint us from time to time, we have a God who loves us in spite of our failures and disappointment. And he fills us with his kindness and love so we can share it with others. So let's go and do that this week. Amen. We've got a great little video coming up. Just like I said at the beginning, Peanuts is a great theological resource. So are our children. And they're going to tell us a little bit about what love is.